Michael Wilson has helped you get this far, but will you trust him in week 15 with your season on the line? That more this week on the couch. My heart is so happy to be joined by Pat Daugherty, old friend here from the fantasy realm. Michael Wilson, he's on that Billy Volek to Drew Bennett, Brissett to Wilson track, but Houston Texans have been derailing trains. What do we do in week 15?
They have. I'm worried about that aspect, but I try not to overthink Jerry Rice 2.0. That is unless Marvin Harrison 2.0 plays. And so if Marv's out there, then I get a lot cagier about it, a lot shakier about it. But I mean, I don't even know what to call him other than Jerry. It's like Jerry and Steve Young, or even Joe, maybe even Joe Montana.
Yeah.
When Marvin is not out there, I do worry, of course, about the Texans' defensive line splintering Jacoby Brissett apart. So I'm more worried about the Jacoby aspect than the Michael Wilson aspect. But it's just like I feel like you have to work to poke holes into Michael Wilson. And there are holes to poke this week, but yeah, I'm riding the horse who got me here, and Michael Wilson this week.
I mean, that's fair. So, like you said, if Harrison's out, it's really hard to resist because it's just you risk the floor game because the ceiling has been number one overall twice already in a very short period of time. And even if the Texans defense is putting the clamps on them, like you said, if Jacoby Brissett just doesn't get hurt, then there could be a second half garbage time. No, but Brissett, just to be clear, Brissett on the other hand, I'm saying no.
Yeah, absolutely not. No, especially 32 team player pool this week. So there's less reason to try to get cute. And one final thought I'll say on this is obviously the Texans have been a stay away matchup all year. Like this isn't like just a Johnny come lately thing happening against the Chiefs. But I do feel like the Michael Wilson fear would be less this week. We just hadn't had such a dominant Texans performance in prime time. But I also say, how would the perception be if just 3 of those Chiefs drops had been only drops instead of 6 of them?
Right.
And that's coloring the perception too, or it would not have been such a disastrous game for the Chiefs if it hadn't been like such an outlier drop game. So I think like the fear, well, again, it's justified. It's a tough matchup. It has been all year. I think the fear though will be a little over the top because of what happened and just kind of honestly what I thought was an outlier performance from the Chiefs in terms of just how truly terrible it was.
Yeah, it was. It was bad. Some of it is offensive line stuff. And it's great.
Yes.
It's great, Pat. We've been around long enough that I think more and more of the fantasy football community are conversant, if not fluent, in play caller, play design talk, and offensive line talk, because it often is the hidden factor, not so hidden, of why things are trending the way they are. And Kansas City, that's going to be something to watch too, as they play a Chargers defense, which was really spirited. Certainly they were playing very well against Philadelphia. So we'll see what happens with Mahomes, because Mahomes looked like he was going to be a league winner in the first half of the season.
I know he was for me.
If you just look at the numbers, Pat, I mean, he's had one good fantasy game like in the last month. So, I mean, are you still treating him like we were treating him in the first half of the season? I mean, because it sucks. This Houston game, like you said, it's coloring our perceptions, but the actual perception of Patrick Mahomes is not exactly helping fantasy teams win.
No, it hasn't. I can't shake talk about, how we always try to find like false patterns and that kind of thing. Everything's a pattern, except for like very few things are actually a pattern. I do think what my conspiracy theory inside my own head is that the return of Rashee Rice, of course, it's like there's no way it's actually bad, but right. That I think it made the Chiefs like too comfortable. Like they fell back on the habits that they had been trying to let go of from 2023, 2024. And I just feel like the offense has been less creative since then. I say that though, then in my mind's eye, I'm still seeing them taking deep shots. They're just not hitting them as usual. And the return of Rashee Rice, I felt like almost led to like a bad familiarity, like a bad comfort. And they needed him back badly. Of course, he makes the team far better, or he should. I just think that they need new ideas. Like, I don't think Andy Reid needs to be fired, whatever. Of course, anything extreme like that. I do feel like guys like Andy Reid never want to do this, understandably so, but I think they need someone from outside the current Andy Reid tree, or at the very least a Reid guy who's been outside of Kansas City
right for
a little while. They just strike me as a team that needs new ideas. The Tom Brady Patriots were always kind of one variation of the same thing, similar variations. Excuse me, I can't speak today. Different variations of one same thing, but they did evolve and change throughout those 20 years. I mean, we had the Randy Moss Patriots, and then we just had the ruthless efficiency, like 2015 Patriots. Where I feel like we need the next iteration of whatever this Chiefs thing is, because this one is just out of gas, and maybe some of it's bad luck and like one score game regression. But the Chiefs, I just feel like they need a few new ideas.
Well, that was definitely the reaction after Sunday night for sure. That okay, this version of the Chiefs, like they've tried to keep the dynasty together, but it was more defense and disciplined offense in the past. And like you said, we were reverting in fantasy terms that Patrick Mahomes is going to carry everything. And then when Rashi Rice, I'll say Rashi Rice. I don't know where I saw some pronunciation. You see something once, something about my brain, and I'm just saying this as a support.
I think he does say Rashi actually.
I saw it at one point, but if something gets misentered in my little database here the first time wrong, Pat, it takes me forever to actually. I've got old man brain.
It took me 15 years to say Flacco correctly. I always said Flacco. I'm not even kidding. Up until like the past year or two, and finally someone was like a well-meaning Twitter follower.
Yeah.
Like, listen, man, I love you, but you've got to say it right.
Yeah. You always tell me, folks. I mean, I want folks to always tell me that, because to me, it's just like respect. It's a very small way to show, when Tedoroa McMillan says, I want to be called Tedoroa McMillan, then I'm going to call him Tedoroa McMillan. But anyway, what I'm going to call Patrick Mahomes at this point is somebody like a team, and teams take on the personality of their quarterbacks and their head coaches. And it seemed like once Rice was back, Pat, they were like, oh, we're going to be fine. Everything's good. And in that sense, I think you're right to say that marked a point when they stopped really being inspired on offense.
Exactly. I felt like they had like a good open vulnerability before Rashi Rice came back, where they weren't reinventing the wheel, but they were trying new things that they did not do in 2023 and 2024. And it seemed like an open acknowledgement that approach just needed to be left behind. And I'm not trying to go full galaxy brain and be like, Rashi Rice makes the Chiefs worse, because obviously that is not actually true. I just felt like, that it kind of stopped the momentum of them trying to change things up and move on from an approach that won them a Super Bowl. It got them to another Super Bowl, but that even they knew had reached the end of the line. Like, we're the Chiefs. It's got to be explosive sometimes. Like, what is our one killer app? It's Patrick Mahomes, doing not our one killer app, but Patrick Mahomes is special down the field. And that you hit on another point about the Chiefs. Like, Patrick Mahomes, other than Tom Brady, is probably executed better than any modern football player I've ever seen. And that has not been there the past month or two, which has been very surprising to see.
Yeah, it's definitely not the Chiefs offense that we saw in the first half of the year. And let's just do real quick, lightning round. Okay. Just quarterback decisions, just react in the moment to me. Patrick Mahomes or this week. Okay. Patrick Mahomes. And he's playing the Chargers, who played the Chiefs tough in week 1 in Kansas City. I don't know what the weather's going to be. Okay. Patrick Mahomes or Brock Purdy against Tennessee.
Oh my gosh. I'm gonna go Mahomes, because I listen, I do worry. Everything we just said about the Chiefs has me a little worried about, that Chargers win last night came sort of close to formally ending the Chiefs season. The Chiefs desperately needed the Chargers to lose. So I do worry about a letdown factor for the Chiefs, because it was going to be a pseudo playoff game if the Chargers had lost last night, but they won. But then again, I see no indication this is a proud franchise packing it in. I do think they're treating this as their first playoff game of the 2025-26 season. I think we will get a Mahomes rising to the occasion. I don't know why I'm saying it. It's contradicting everything I just said. Yeah. But I'd rather, a lot of fantasy people do not appreciate this kind of thinking anymore, because it's more superstitious than analytical. I would rather get eliminated from the playoffs with Patrick Mahomes in my lineup than on my bench.
Yeah, that's fair. I've always called that, Pat, the what can you live with test.
Yes,
and you can live with losing because you played Mahomes, but it's hard to live with losing because you didn't play Mahomes. But let's just touch on a couple of other interesting quarterbacks. And again, just react in the moment. And and I'm assuming Mike Evans isn't going to be back, Jalen McMillan's going to be back, but Baker Mayfield against Atlanta on Thursday night, you have to make that one decision early, or Mahomes.
Mahomes, just because I'm excited to see Mike Evans back. Hopefully, the Bucs offense it's been one of the absolute worst in the league for 6 or 7 weeks now. Yeah. Now, part of that is because everyone was gone. Bucky's now back. Like you said, we hope Evans is back. We hope even Jalen McMillan is back. Will Tristan Wirfs be back?
Right.
You talked about contextualizing things for earlier, like offensive line play. Even now, after learning every lesson the hard way 10 different times, last week, Tristan Wirfs almost never even entered my thought process. And when it came to ranking the Bucs skill players, and I'm watching the game, oh yeah, that's right, they're missing the best left tackle in football, and I proceeded as if that didn't matter in ranking players in fantasy football, and a really dumb, humbling lesson to relearn for the 1,000th time. So anyway, that's my long way of saying I'll still start Mahomes.
Yeah, and the one reason I'm a little open to Mayfield is just because Atlanta's pass defense was just atrocious against Sam Darnold in the second half. Sam Darnold, they had 6 points at halftime. They ended up with 37.
I know. And I think it was 31-0 after halftime. Yes,
right. And Mayfield, I mean, they played in a monsoon. Tyler Shough. Also, the Saints. I mean, hats off to Kellen Moore. Because the Saints, they're a competitive team. I mean, they're a competitive team. They're playing actually above their heads. They've won 2 games on the road in that division, the 2 teams in first and second. So we'll see. How about Mahomes or Jared Goff at the Rams?
Normally by now I would have my rankings finalized, by the way, and I would have a more concrete answer for you.
Well, I'm helping you with your prep.
You are. I'll go Mahomes just because I'm still liking the Rams defense. I still believe in the narrative of Jared Goff on the road. We've seen very mixed things from the Lions offensively. I think more of it good than more of it bad. But Jared Goff on the road, again, could go down Narrative Street against the coach who knows him the best other than Dan Campbell. The Rams are going to know. They know what makes Jared Goff tick or not. And I think that would be a compelling tiebreaker for me, Goff versus Mahomes. Apparently, I'm just keeping the Mahomes faith. No, I'm Mahomes no matter what.
Well, but there are some quarterbacks we drafted after Mahomes that we're playing over Mahomes, right? I mean, we're playing Matthew Stafford against Detroit over Mahomes. We're playing Dak Prescott. I mean, even though it's Minnesota.
Absolutely,
I think you're playing Dak Prescott. I mean, I don't know if CeeDee Lamb's going to be out there or not, but either way, it's quarterback decisions. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting, folks that have Jalen Hurts after what happened. First player to have to turn over twice on the same play. It's going to be interesting if you have Lamar Jackson, you're going to play Lamar Jackson. It's more interesting when we get to when he plays Green Bay in week 16. It's also when Sam Darnold, I'm sorry, not Sam Darnold, when Stafford plays Seattle again. So, some interesting decisions, but you're right that it is on the couch. It's reasonable to use the what can you live with test. And that's where you'd like to always start your studs and stuff like that. Now, is Justin Jefferson a stud at this point? Is Justin Jefferson one of those players that you can't live with benching, even though he had 2 catches last week and JJ McCarthy's best game of the year?
I think I made that exact point on Justin Jefferson either last week or 2 weeks ago. And that one, I do just feel like you have to waver at this point. Because it's not just because of how poorly – one of the things that stood out the most to me about how poorly JJ McCarthy is playing is – the fact that he's unwilling or unable to target Justin Jefferson, i.e. he can't make the tough throws. Justin Jefferson seeing the toughest, tightest coverage, and the young quarterback, I guess it's a good thing that he's not doing it because it would probably just be an instant turnover. But people are like, why is he at least targeting Jordan Addison? How come Jalen Naylor has gone off occasionally with JJ McCarthy, but not Justin Jefferson? It's because obviously you can't pull the trigger on the tight window throws to Justin Jefferson. And of course, we liked seeing the progress from JJ McCarthy last week, but I think 9 of his 16 completions were on the first 2 drives, AKA probably a lot of scripted plays. In theory, the Cowboys, of course, a good matchup, even though they've tightened up on defense a bit since the trade deadline. But to me, it strikes me as almost total nightmare JJ McCarthy game script, because the last thing you want is JJ McCarthy having to match points. And then that's when the stack and turnover avalanche begins. And so Justin Jefferson, you got to view him as an archetype instead of a player. And to me, he's now the archetype of a volatile wide receiver 3, where you're hoping on 4 to 6 targets. He's the kind of player who can flip a matchup on 4 to 6 targets, but he's in a situation where he could get 0 points on 4 to 6 targets. So that's where I have finally just had to view, like, he's not Justin Jefferson right now. He's a guy playing with JJ McCarthy, and like, I didn't draft him to be this, but that's what he is. And I view him as a true boom bust wide receiver 3, basically.
It's fascinating because one of the ways that fantasy football really gets you, Pat, especially if you're an overthinker like me, like most of us on the couch.
Like me,
if you're
yeah,
if
for
you're
sure.
if you're listening,
If you're on the couch, yeah, you're gonna be.
I mean, if you're a fan of this show, if you like give us your time, then you're probably an overthinker. Fantasy football is great for overthinking, but if Justin Jefferson has another 2 or 3 catch game, because the bottom line is, and why I think if people are on the fence, I say put Jefferson on your bench, because, and we saw this earlier in the year with Trevor Lawrence and Brian Thomas. There absolutely is such a thing as quarterback receiver chemistry.
Yes.
It is not just a football thing. And the throws, especially the deep throws to Justin Jefferson this year, have been disastrous. Just disastrous. Not always on McCarthy either. Sometimes it's just like Justin Jefferson falling down. Like, when does that happen?
Yeah, I know.
It's just not. It's just, and they went to a much more tight end heavy. It's all Arthur Smith everywhere around the league. They went to a more tight end heavy approach, and it seemed to really settle down. And the running game, and it's going to be fascinating. Watch Minnesota and Dallas be some 17-14 street fight because both teams just want to run the ball or something. But then you could also see JJ McCarthy if Dallas gets ahead, which will be interesting because, again, Minnesota's defense, once they got Andrew Van Ginkel back, their defense is actually still pretty good.
It is.
And if Dallas does, though, get ahead, because they can with Dak Prescott, and it's at home where they generally play better, and then JJ McCarthy has to go turn into freewheeling JJ McCarthy, you're right. I mean, that's where you're like, geez, should I play the Dallas defense this week? Maybe if it unfolds that way, you might want to. However, it is Dallas's defense. They are subject to breakdowns in the secondary, and if Justin Jefferson caught some meaningless long passes, and they kind of like Xavier Worthy in the Super Bowl, boy, that was a false indicator. Then you say, like, I should have known. But I think betting on trends to reverse, Pat, is often when I have really, in fantasy terms, sorry, to like shown my ass.
No, absolutely. And I think there's 2 ways to view Justin Jefferson. The 2 ways to view the situation, basically. Like, you can be like defiant and upset, like, he's my wide receiver 1. It's like, I'm not mentioning my wide receiver 1. This is dumb. Like, this is their fault. It's not my fault. Or you could view it like the second, like, it's very unfortunate that he's no longer your wide receiver 1. But like, say you're sifting through options on your bench. Like, well, at least I have this Justin Jefferson Hail Mary I can throw. Mm-hmm. Like, if you don't like your third receiver, you don't like your flex, you don't maybe even like your second flex, like, things have gone totally haywire and askew here. But whatever, I'm going to try to maximize upside this week. I'm thankful to at least have this option, even though it's probably going to continue the downward trend. It's probably not going to work out for me. Maybe just view it as to be thankful you have the Justin Jefferson, potentially week-changing option on your bench.
Yeah, and it just depends on the other option. I mean, that's the other part is once someone gave me another option, it'd be easier for me to say, like, if someone said like Jalen Waddle or Justin Jefferson, it's almost the same kind of proposition, but at least there's been success recently in the past, or even Justin Jefferson or Brian Thomas, who we just brought up,
oh, man, that's a tough one.
But I think when I reflect, Pat, on good and bad calls and doing post-mortem, because I care. I mean, but when we get to this point of the year and people give me questions, especially people that I know we have like a long relationship with our shows and our entities that we represent, I mean, I always come back to who has done it recently, at least in the last like 3 or 4 week window. I think in general in fantasy football, if you reduce things down to a 3 or 4 week window when you're looking for indicators, that is the best thing. And there's just nothing positive. There's nothing nudging you to play Justin Jefferson right now. So if the other option is somebody like that, then you're probably going to go with it. But if someone said, well, Justin Jefferson or Ladd McConkey, well, okay, I'll give Justin Jefferson a shot there, even though from a draft value perspective or points year-to-date perspective, it might seem a lot closer. Okay, so just in general, though, talk about the Minnesota offense because they get the Giants and they get the Lions. So, I mean, that sounds great. I hope, I mean, this is the best story I can put together, Pat. We like telling stories here. That JJ McCarthy got to get off the merry-go-round. His head stopped spinning. he got to watch Max Brosmer look far worse. Now it was Seattle, but it's almost a relief, right? Like, seeing someone else fail. And now the Vikings aren't, it's almost like it's assumed that he's going to at least have competition. He's not quite where Anthony Richardson was going into the offseason last year, but in that vein. So now the pressure's off. It's not like he's playing for his future now. Now he can just go out and play football. So, Jordan Addison, Aaron Jones and Jordan Mason is what the heck flex is. JJ McCarthy in 2 quarterback super flex leagues. JJ McCarthy even potentially as a streaming quarterback one, because if he has another good week this week and he has another good week in week 16, at some point you're going to say, like, well, I have to consider JJ McCarthy, or even picking him up, cycling through backup quarterbacks for the fantasy playoffs. I'm making a long question here to give you time to think about this. Like, are we ready to open our hearts to this offense in the next 3 weeks?
Now, I need to see one more thing. And first off, one thing we need to see is, goes without saying, we have to see a good game in this good game environment and potentially a good matchup in the Cowboys defense. Again, they've been a little better over the past 6 weeks, but as you said, still prone to enormous breakdowns, especially on the back end of the defense. But the one thing I feel like we have not seen at all from JJ McCarthy. So we've seen him look really good on the scripted series, more weeks than not, almost every week. We've seen him look pretty good in like late game feral mode, where it's just time to read and react. Like you're going fast and you have to make a play. Like the game's on the line. Like it's more instinctual. What we have not seen, I feel like, at all, even really last week against the Commanders. He didn't play poorly in this segment of the game, but like the middle portions of the game where you just have to be in rhythm, I feel like I've never seen him in rhythm.
Yes.
Other than the scripted series. And like until I see him prove he can be in rhythm and like the normal flow of the game, that it will just feel too volatile, like too much of a potential rug pull to me. Like I have to see him do well in like normal game conditions, basically. Like I have not seen JJ McCarthy ever be in rhythm in the NFL.
It seems like his internal processor, Pat, I was talking about this last week with Mike Dempsey. It seems like his internal processor is just, it's sped up, it's fast, and not in a good way.
Yes.
And I don't think it's because he's scared.
No, he doesn't seem scared at all, actually.
I think it's just maybe he's just young, and he is maybe like nervous. I think they call it eustress. Like there's stress when you're going to perform that's good stress. It just means that you're invested and you care. But because of that, it feels like his processing is kind of herky-jerky. It doesn't have like a nice metronomic rhythm. And Trevor Lawrence looked like this earlier in the year. Trevor Lawrence is settling down. So basically, same question, but about the Jacksonville offense.
Well, the Jags. So, I mean, talk about like the really negative Chiefs performance sticking in our mind. Like the really positive Jags performance has to stick in your mind. But Lawrence. So all I can say is, if you're going to trust him down the stretch, you basically are. You have to throw out everything we've seen prior to really the past 2 or 3 weeks, because in my head, when I think this year of who's a quarterback that just isn't making the throws, like amongst like established quarterbacks, at least throwing out guys like JJ McCarthy or even like Tyler Shough, who's been playing reasonably well, as we said. But like the guy who would come to mind is like Trevor Lawrence. Like the guy is not making the throws. Like why can he just not make the throws? Not to be like so blunt about it and like so like old school analysis, but like I watched the Jaguars game. He doesn't make the throws. Like I don't even know how else to put it. Now the past 2 or 3 weeks, they get Brenton Strange back finally. Yep. Or they get Jacoby Myers really going in the offense. Brian Thomas Jr. coming back. He's still frustrating fantasy managers, but he's actually contributing a little bit, at least occupying defensive attention a little bit. And, it stands to reason now. 13 games, new coach, new system. Maybe some things are actually clicking, where I am definitely open to the possibility something has changed, because to the eye test, he was one of my least favorite guys to watch all year. He's been bombing the efficiency marks all year, like EPA, completion percentage over expected, all that. But you know how football is now. Like, who knows how much install they even truly got to do in the summer? They're not hitting, they're not really running the offense or whatever. And maybe it was just growing pains. And maybe we should have been paying attention to the fact that amidst the growing pains, they were just like winning more often than not.
Yeah.
The weird thing with the Jags to me is like they haven't been a fun offense to watch almost all year, but they almost like always are somehow dictating the terms of engagement. Mm-hmm. And like where they were just like, I guess the cliche, finding a way to win.
Right.
Where it seems like the game's always on the Jaguars' terms, even though they weren't playing well. And all of a sudden, Trevor Lawrence has been playing better. Or I am open to maybe giving Trevor Lawrence some benefit of the doubt during the fantasy playoffs.
And the thing is, we're not even just constructing a narrative, although I'm happy to construct a narrative.
Me too.
That's what I do, right? It's one of my jobs. But you mentioned Brenton Strange coming back, and Lawrence has been hyper efficient throwing to Jacoby Myers and Brenton Strange, and Jacoby Myers ramping up to a large role, and Brenton Strange, and I'll admit sleeping on Brenton Strange. He's their Tucker Kraft. I mean, he is that kind of player. He had a touchdown, by the way, taken off the board last week by a Jacoby Myers pick. He was, his hand was in the cookie jar, a little too obvious. But don't bail on Brenton Strange just because of what happened last week. But also, back in mid-November, there was a piece about how Liam Cohen told Trevor Lawrence to cut it loose. He just told him, like, just play football, man. And now, so it's not even like we're just positing something. I mean, there's an actual event that was reported that coincided in addition with these other things that are making life easier for Trevor Lawrence. So, and he's had 3 straight good fantasy games. Again,
Yes.
I mean, it's translated to fantasy. And but the Jags in general are fun, and I want to talk about them a little bit more, Pat, because you hit on something. The way I put it was they're a fun team to project in the playoff bracket because they can win a lot of different kinds of games.
Yes.
Right. I mean, they're
absolutely.
That's the thing is, they can win on opportunistic defense. They can win occasionally with their running game. They can win as a passing team, or they can just win a team in a game that's more about like field position and tight. But what ties it all together that's really fun to watch, and this is another thing where it's so fascinating when people get caught up on that opening press conference, Dan Campbell, like, and in hindsight, Dan Campbell was telling us, like, our team is going to put, I think Matt Waldman said something like this in one of our discussions back at base camp, like, that physicality is going to be the cornerstone of our team, and when Liam Cohen did his, like, I think
I do impressions of that on our show relatively frequently.
It's an iconic moment, and it's an iconic moment because I think what he was saying was, like, I've got a plan. We're going to do this, but I don't really care what you think. And Travis Etienne even said this week, like, we know that they're never going to give us credit. Like, nobody likes us. And that's what's really fun about this team. They're kind of like the Bad News Bears or something where, like, Liam Cohen has gotten them in this best Steelers teams. I'm getting tingles because I'm thinking about my favorite Steelers teams. When a football team can adopt an us against the world mentality,
yes,
it can be galvanizing. It can be something special. And I'm open to that happening for this Jacksonville team.
And to bring your point full circle, there were so many times the first half of the season where it's like, I don't even understand how the Jaguars are winning. And I think it's to, like, what you were just saying, like, I cannot speak not in cliches on this, but they were just finding a way to win every given week. Whatever the game at hand called for, they were doing. And so, like, if Trevor Lawrence just wasn't making the throws down the field, they would ride the run game, which has not been super efficient, but it's been just good enough. Everything's just been just good enough in a lot of ways. And the defense really is, like, underrated. Like, they basically totally eliminate the run. I think they're like top 8 or 9 in terms of yards per play on defense. Like, yardage is hard to come by against the Jaguars. And so, like, as they were figuring out the bigger picture stuff, they were just, like, taking care of a lot of, like, the unsexy under the radar stuff. Like, we're really hard to run the ball on. And, like, they're pretty good at, like, time of possession. So they're just dictating the terms of engagement. And there were so many times, like, I just don't even understand how the Jaguars are winning this game. And but now it's starting to make more sense. As
it is.
I think what we're all saying, everything we're saying is kind of just saying things are coming together for the Jaguars.
It's going to be a fascinating contrast between, like, the Jags and Denver and Chicago, these teams that are more in this mold where when someone has to make a play, they make a play. And by the way, cliches become cliches because they are apt and fitting so often that we use them a lot. So that doesn't mean you should ignore them. Secrets of the universe aren't secret. But and then you have all the quarterback driven teams, I mean, basically, like, you're going to get as far. So that's what's interesting about Chicago and Denver. And what's interesting, and Detroit was supposed to be built this way, right? And Jacksonville, it doesn't matter. Like, the quarterback, they can win on days that the quarterback doesn't have his best game. So I'm super fascinated. I'm really enjoying watching this team. Just in general, I thought week 14, Pat, I thought it was just, if someone said, why care so much? Why give yourself over to football the way we do every year? just the raw emotional intensity and the turns of those games were, I mean, Pittsburgh-Baltimore was one of the best installments of the second greatest coaching rivalry in NFL history. And Aaron Rodgers and DK Metcalf added their entries into that book of forever of that amazing rivalry. And Patrick Queen and Malik Harrison were former Ravens linebackers. But Malik Harrison knocked himself out cold tackling Derrick Henry in that game. That's the kind of game Steelers-Ravens is. And it wasn't even the best game of the day. It wasn't even the best game of the day. And that's why I want to take a little moment to appreciate what we watched, Cincinnati against Baltimore, because if a Super Bowl, we could only hope Super Bowls are played with the kind of intensity and the kind of swings and just games within games that one had. It's special, but it makes me sad that we're not going to see Joe Burrow in the playoffs.
I know, because talk about like that was the first official playoff game in more ways than one. Like you said, it was playoff quality. Also playoff quality in terms of like the setting and scenery. Getting the snow game,
and that's where
Buffalo.
Football should be played. That's football. That's the natural environment for the game of football.
And then rising to the occasion. But it was the first playoff game though. Also in that the Bengals had to win it or their season's over, and then they did not. And it too is just so very Bengals where it's difficult to even pinpoint how they lost. Of course, you can pinpoint the Benford interception, which was really just an amazing play more than a bad throw or bad. I mean, it wasn't a great throw, I guess, since it was literally.
Burrow didn't have, I think it was because of how cold it was. And for that play, I think maybe the way he fielded the snap or something, he just did not have a good feel for the ball at that point. And then the same thing happened on the next play. And it just goes to show how, I mean, the Bengals, even on defense, I mean, they did everything. I mean, they played like a team with their back against the wall that was going to summon up everything they had to survive. And they did that except for those two plays.
And then the Bills did the exact same thing. So the Bills are successfully doing what the Chiefs are not, where they need to go feral mode. So it's like their playoff standing was a bit in danger. Like the offense just isn't doing what they want it to do or what they've expected it to do. Similar Chiefs problem too in this. They don't have enough weapons, but they had to go feral mode. They had to go Josh Allen big play mode. And is that the cliche? Finding a way to win.
Yeah, well,
this is why these cliches exist.
I mean, and some of it was the Bengals defense started to break down, like a 40-yard touchdown run where Josh Allen's like, "Is anybody going to try to tackle me?" And then they had him on 3rd and 15. They actually sacked him. Geno Stone sacked him because Burrow. They fell down 39-28, and Burrow still put together a 4-play touchdown drive in under a minute, and then was 3rd and 15, and all they had to do is get a stop on 3rd and 15, and Burrow was going to get the ball back with a chance to win. And Allen got a 17-yard scramble, and it looked easy. But it was really a beautiful game in terms of seeing. Like I feel like watching Joe Burrow and Josh Allen. I said to Cecil has a comic book. Cecil has like 8 comic book properties that he's developed. Burrow should have his own comic book. Josh Allen should have his own comic book. I mean, they are that epic characters, but this is how I try to capture it because Max Toscano, you'll make me feel good about this, I'm sure. Max Toscano, everyone should follow him. It's one of my favorite football thinkers arriving on the scene in the last year or two. He was talking about how the Burrow-Allen matchup was so amazing because they're kind of a yin and a yang to each other in terms of how they played the position. And it was, and I want to point out too that we'd only seen 2 matchups of those two before. One was the game, DeMar Hamlin game.
Yes.
That, and then it was a playoff game
in Buffalo, I believe.
In Buffalo, when Cincinnati just thoroughly dismissed them. I think there was a regular season game. Maybe there was 3, and the other game I just never got in the books. But we hadn't really seen them on this kind of stage yet. And it's so lived up to it. And this is my take, okay? Because I'm a child of the 80s. It's RoboCop versus John Rambo.
Doesn't quite
hit to me. Burrow is RoboCop. That much I'm sure.
Burrow to me is like he's almost like Bruce Wayne's a terrible comparison. He's almost flawless efficiency. Where like he's making the right read, he's making the right throw. He makes the computers happy. He makes the eye test happy. And then like Josh Allen is kind of like to make a more modern, although it's not even that modern anymore. I'm not going to say MacGyver. I'm going to say MacGruber.
Sure.
I never even watched MacGyver. Like Josh Allen's like MacGruber. Like I've got a solution that requires like 8 things going right. None of them make sense, but then they do
Yeah,
more
like the
often than
throw to
not.
Khalil Shakir last week through 3 guys. I know the dots on that one looks really good if you like dots. Josh Allen threw a touchdown pass to Khalil Shakir, like through basically 3 players. There was no window. He made a window. That, and you're right. I mean, John Rambo, because Rambo did some stuff like that for people
He
that
did.
remember.
Rambo was an improviser. I have seen First Blood.
You drew first blood. It's a really political movie, actually.
It is. It's also almost stunningly violent.
Oh, true. I mean, for
Even by
Hollywood,
modern standards,
even
it's
by
almost
Hollywood, even by
stunningly
Hollywood
violent.
standards.
Yeah.
But the reason I love Joe Burrow's RoboCop is they're rebuilding him piece by piece, and he has the prime directives. I mean, he's so thoroughly focused. I mean, he is completely focused. Other than like during Met Gala week or something, he is so. I mean, he is fashionable. It's fascinating
He
that
is.
that's part of his persona, is that he really cares about being fashionable. And then sometimes he just looks like one of the dudes. And Josh Allen's with like a superstar and all this stuff. And Josh Allen has this great public persona around Buffalo. Everyone loves him. But Joe Burrow's not warm and fuzzy,
No, he's not. Not at all. No.
and that's okay because he's just such an epic figure, and it's sad that we're not going to see him in the playoffs. Hopefully, we will see him. Let's go. I'm going to just give some folks some red meat as before we get to off the rails of just some different other Week 15 burning questions, because you brought up Tyler Shough, and I'm down here in New Orleans, so I don't want to get too lost in the sauce. But after his game against Carolina, I was like, I think there's something here. I think there's something here. Improvised plays. And by the way, the Carolina defense frustrated Matthew Stafford on that same field. And then Shough, and these are road divisional wins. The NFL cares about road divisional wins. And then he does it at Tampa in a monsoon. Everyone forgot he ran a 4.63 at the combine. But
I did.
Tampa surely was reminded of that. And the Saints, again, we talked about it earlier in the show, they're playing hard. They're playing hard for Kellen Moore. I mean, they're building something there, and they have some guys. I mean, they've got Bailey, they've got Juwan Johnson, Devin Neal. We'll see if Alvin Kamara is going to be back. It could apply to Alvin Kamara because he was kind of dead in the water for fantasy too. Saints play Carolina. But then, and Carolina's defense, I'm open to respecting them. But then they play the Jets in Tennessee in week 17. Are we ready to be open to Saints other than Chris Olave in our lineup?
So I'm still not open to Shough in the lineup, of course, even though Shough has really surprised me. Been one of the most surprising players, and not saying he hasn't taken a lot of sacks. He's taken a pretty decent amount of sacks. He's committed a decent amount of turnovers. Like a really good first test, I felt like for Shough to pass was he's had to throw like a lot, and it has not been accompanied by like JJ McCarthy level embarrassment. He's not having 3 or 4 interception games. He's not taking 6 or 7 sacks. He's taken 4 or 5 a few times, I will say, but he's not melting down like under fire, basically, where you don't want, even if he's 27 or whatever, however old Tyler Shough is, you don't want your rookie having to throw 45 times in a game. And Tyler Shough had to do that a few times and held up reasonably well. So to me, that's been very interesting to see with Tyler Shough. It's been very interesting to see that. So I feel like a good test, at least in terms of the fantasy lens, like Tyler Shough is not making himself fantasy viable. I was not expecting him to keep his weapons fantasy viable, and he's very much done that. Like I was shocked to see that it was still remaining like a reasonably high attempts offense. And not only that, like unlike JJ McCarthy, he's getting the ball to the guys who actually should be getting the ball. He's finding ways to get Chris Olave the ball, to get Juwan Johnson the ball, and now even Devon Vele the ball, like you said. So that's been interesting. And then, trusting his athleticism, not something I was really expecting to see. And he almost looked like, to me, like he looked like if Nick Foles was like athletic, is kind of what I've seen the past few weeks, I feel like. And his Tyler Shough has surprised me more than almost any player this year. Because I was one of like the jeering, like the hecklers from the balcony or whatever. I thought it was a really, really poor process pick. But I can kind of see the vision now after 6 or 7 games of Tyler Shough.
And Kellen Moore is, I'm sure, part of that picture. I mean, a big part of that picture. And look at the difference in the Eagles' offense this year. But it's a fascinating question from a human development perspective. One of the things that's flipped in our lifetimes, Pat, I think it's actually strategic to hold your kid back for a year now. I mean, it's not only is it not a stigma that I think there's a lot more people noticing that when your kid is with peers that are younger, a little younger than them, then their self-esteem, this is a whole other separate thing, but I'm really convinced that yes, the secondary school years up to 12th grade are very important for a child's development, but has nothing to do with what they learn. All the times they said, no, you're going to use this. You're not actually. You're learning how to think, you're learning how to reason through things. You're like, that part is important, but your self-image, that part is actually what lasts, including socially. And being with kids that are a little bit younger and being a little bit further, like when you can't help but compare yourself to other people, right? You can tell people don't do it, but it's so hard. And Tyler Shough being a 7th-year college quarterback, that was the joke, right? Oh, geez, if we gave every quarterback 7 years to finally have the light bulb go on, then everybody would do it. But maybe there really is something here. And I think because of the Wild West of college football, I don't know that there's a specific rule that's going to prohibit this from happening. As far as I know, Pat, that quarterbacks, I don't even know if at some point if you'll have to have any connection to the college to play for the college team, I mean, it could get a little wonky in the way that quarterbacks could get to the point where Tyler Shough got in college, and it makes sense it's like taking cake out of the oven before it's ready. Because what we saw was all of a sudden last year, Tyler Shough had presence and poise, and he was making plays outside of structure, and all the tools he had were actually being brought to bear to influence the outcome of a football game. And especially in that Carolina game, he had some incredible extended plays, and even the runs against Tampa tell you he has his wits about him when the bullets are flying around him. Like, he's thinking in terms of, like, I'm going to make something happen, but not in a way that he's forcing anything, but in a way that obviously he's processing the game at a speed and getting cues and instructions from his visual information that's making him make plays. The throw he made to Juwan Johnson for the touchdown was just a thing of beauty against the Panthers. And I'm excited. I'm all the Saints fans down here, like, do they have a quarterback? I think they might have a quarterback, Pat.
And to put a fine point on everything you just said, yeah, he's playing fast. Where the first scramble touchdown, it wasn't a scramble, it was a read option keeper. Like, that was impressive. 32 yards. That's where I was like, wow, his athleticism. Like, I did not expect that. The second one, I think, was only 13 yards. That was like infinitely more impressive because it was in the face of the blitz. Like, a guy was just on top of him. He evaded it. And yeah, kind of like without thinking, like, knew what to do. Like toughness, guile, whatever you want to say, took a hit at the goal line. And yet the young quarterbacks, I just don't even like physical maturity. I'm sure has never been more important in the NFL. It's always been important, but like the guys now are like perfect weapons on defense. Like, you're not getting like any doughboys in the NFL anymore. So you got to be physically ready and just mentally now with like the stuff I don't even understand, like simulated blitzes and like the more exotic looks than ever. Like, it's making life hell for young players. It's in so many ways, it's never been harder to be a young athlete. Like, if you look at Major League Baseball, all of a sudden, like, young hitters can't hit.
Right.
And I feel like you're seeing some of the same things with like young quarterbacks where it's just been so amped up. Like, even compared to 10 years ago, it's so amped up now. And yeah, it's going to be a tough road to hoe for young quarterbacks. And I don't know. Yeah, maybe it's not as big of a disadvantage as we used to think. Joe Burrow, of course, a poster boy, coming in at age 24 or whatever,
right,
and basically looked like an MVP out of the gates. So yeah, we can no longer just accuse every old quarterback of being Brandon Weeden 2.0.
right. I mean, we'll see. Or Tyler Shough will turn back into a pumpkin or something like that.
Yeah, it'll be terrible. And like we'll say you gotta delete the show we did.
Right. Oh man, if I'm going to start deleting, I don't even know where to start. It's funny too because I think
same.
I just have 80s action movies on the brain because as you were describing what it's like, and it's not just all the things you said about deceiving quarterbacks, understanding, and I think Belichick, you mentioned the Rams understanding Jared Goff, and I think Belichick was the first one to understand this and put in action in that Super Bowl where he just showed Goff one thing, and then when they turned the connection to the sideline off, it was something else, and Goff was like, smoke comes out of his ears.
Boy, yeah.
And so that starts where defenses are like, we know that if we show you this, you're going to think this and expect this. So now you're seeing a lot more of that, but then like you said, optimized athletes and also just just players making plays, like some of the plays Nashawn Wright has made for the Bears. I mean, just plays you have to seen to be believed by these defenders. And it made me think of the Running Man. Remember Running Man? I loved Schwarzenegger and Stallone movies as a kid. Remember
Still, I never saw. I knew. I know it's been remade.
Oh, really? I don't. As far as I'm concerned, that we can delete the Hoffman show in my brain because there's only one Running Man. But it was like ever growing, like the bosses at the end of a video game board when you see the players and the conundrums, the labyrinths that these quarterbacks have to, and it's just like I think what we're seeing with JJ McCarthy is the step up is so severe that a franchise almost has to be willing to suffer for a year or two. That's why if you're a Titans fan, you should be excited because Cam Ward has gotten all that stuff out of the way without being branded a loser or a bust or whatever. And the team is actually competing now. And all the players on the Titans seem to love him and they'll play for him. I don't have to make any fancy takeaway. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying too. I think it's really important to Cam Ward that he stayed on the field all year too, because that's like harder than ever to do, and like that's the kind of thing that like it might be an old school mentality or like something like a scout would look for, but I think extremely important that Cam Ward is either never removed himself from either like whatever, like I can maybe play through this hamstring strain, but I'm not going to, or been injured. Like might be like I'm setting the lowest possible bar. The fact that Cam Ward has stayed on the field all year, I feel like is a very good sign.
Yeah, and
for his future development.
I agree. I mean, the most important ability is availability. You can't make the club in the tub. And also, he seems to relish all the nonsense that is coming with being the quarterback of one of the worst teams in football. Like when you watch him in the press conferences and you see, his energy, his body language, he's fine. Remember, this guy
he hates losing too.
Yeah.
Which is, of course, a very good quality still.
I think it's really important in his story to know that he and his dad had to drive around to go to college tryout days to convince college football that he could be a quarterback. And incarnate word, the guy Eric Morris, I forget where he is now, Texas Tech maybe. He saw him. He's like, "Oh my gosh, who are you? How do we not know about you? I'm going to make you my starter right away." But I'm just saying, like Cam Ward was looking at the football universe, telling him like, "You don't belong. You just don't even belong." And then he goes on to win get the number 1 pick. Was he Heisman? I don't even
remember. I can't remember his Heisman, but you're describing Baker Mayfield 2.0 is what you're describing.
Yeah, Baker Mayfield is the same idea. And these guys, that belief in self, that unerring belief in self is important, especially because in the United States, we like to build people up and then tear them down. We really
do. We ever?
We really do. Two quick hitters before we go off the rails, Pat. Blake Corum. I mean, is it overthinking it to play him? Is it overthinking it to not play him?
Probably still overthinking it to play him. Where Corum, I just feel like you're witnessing the birth of a fantasy option, but it's a future fantasy option. But then again, though, I described earlier, like who's someone you're happy to have on your bench. Like you shouldn't be looking for reasons to get this player into your lineup. But if you have to, you have reasonable hope. There's optimism that is reasonable, like not aspirational, because I don't think the workload's not going to go away. Like the Rams, they don't have the number 1 seed salted away, whatever, blah, blah, blah. I still think they're going to try to keep Matthew Stafford off his feet for the stretch run. They're definitely going to try to keep Kyren Williams off his feet within reason. They're not going to be like making Blake Corum the 1A, but the workload is real. Talk about a guy too, who running backs, not typically a good sign if you're not playing as a rookie, typically a horrible.
Oh yeah. It's a good journey. Yeah.
But for a guy who had that severe injury, he seemed like someone who really benefited from not putting many miles on the car as a rookie, and he's just playing so much faster than I feel like he did even his final year in Michigan. Like he just looked like a different player on Sunday than what I remembered seeing in the Big Ten, to be honest.
Yeah, and, not that Big Ten speed and athletic,
and just I think what we're seeing is the birth of a future fantasy option. Someone who needs to be 100% rostered. But Corum is still. I'm not looking for reasons to get him into my lineup. He's a guy where like if you have to get him in your lineup, you can be like, all right, whatever. This is not ideal, but this is not a disaster. Like there could be a touchdown here. There could be 3 or 4 catch. I don't know. Actually, is he involved in the passing game at all? I can't even remember.
Barely.
But he's running. Really. He's running. I didn't think so. So I was immediately like, I got to fact check myself literally immediately on that one. But yeah, Corum, I don't know. Future RB1 even maybe.
Oh yeah.
Kyron's deal is still got guaranteed money for at least another year or two.
It's like Colston Loveland. Draft him next year. Maybe not play him this
exactly.
year. Last question. You can just answer this in one word, yes or no. Is it even interesting to ask whether to play Breece Hall in week 15?
No, because the answer is just a depressing yes. Like, yeah, whatever. Like, guys getting the ball. You play the guy getting the ball. But like, I was doing my early running back rankings. Like, would I rather play Devin Neal or Breece Hall? And the fact that the question's even being asked is a very poor sign.
It's so sad. Free Breece Hall. Okay, free 10 minutes to go off the rails. The first thing I want to say, just because I want to do more stuff where I commemorate anniversaries. I want to say this just real quick for my own self-indulgence because it's my show. It is the 30th anniversary of the Albany Fish Show in 1995. And for those that were there, you know why I'm commemorating it. We all got mail order. There used to be back in the day, Joe and I were reminiscing about this. Have you ever heard the term self-addressed stamp envelope, Pat?
I have. Yeah. I'm very young. I'm 39, so I'm probably older than some people think. But I'm old enough to quote unquote remember things.
Sure. And Fish had this thing where if you did mail order tickets, you avoided Ticket Bastard. This was after the Eddie Vedder thing, and they took him on, and that was the crest of the wave in the music industry when the Outsiders took over. And we all of our buddies, we all ended up like in the fourth row. And it was just it was back before cell phones. How did you meet up with your friends at concerts? My friend Jim Eschwanden, rest in peace, Jim. That's who we had to meet in Albany, and he pulled into the parking garage right next to us. It just takes care of itself.
I was going to say, not to get supernatural, superstitious.
Please do.
It was insane pre-cell phone how you would just find people. Like you were like, I don't know how I'm going to do that, and then they would just appear. It was always like we found each other somehow. That very dumb comment to make.
But. No, I don't think. Okay, see, now we're going to really go. There's a lot of stuff, Pat. There's I can't tell a story without telling another story. There's a man, an older man down here who has an air conditioning heating company that I've gotten to know. He used to play with Fats Domino's son when they were kids. And I've rapped with him about all kinds of stuff. And he said, the way we talk about things down in New Orleans, people in other places would think we have mental problems. And absolutely, a lot of stuff that might seem like woo-woo or supernatural, when you're with believers, it doesn't seem so woo-woo or strange. And when you said that, Pat, what immediately came to my mind was, before cell phones, we were tuned in to other kinds of intelligence or instructions. Because the internet is real. It's always been out there. It's our mass consciousness. Like we're part of a super soul. And there are people that are like Matt Waldman. I love Matt Waldman. I remember for a long time he didn't want to have a cell phone because he didn't want this thing next to his head. And there's the doctors that put like the shields on it. But there is like great, real.
I'm sure it's not good. That's the classic. I just accepted that cost of doing business. Like, yeah. Like I don't have many like Maha type opinions, or like I'm sure the phone next to my brain is probably not good.
And it's and even from a non-health perspective, it's keeping us from being tuned into other things.
I just didn't know why I'm interrupting your wonderful.
No, that's it. Go ahead.
Pre-cell phone, it wasn't really supernatural or superstitious. You just got to know people in a different, more nuanced way. Not that relationships and friendships don't have extreme nuance now. Of course they do, but you understood like the different wavelengths of personalities different. We're like, well, I know so-and-so. I have no idea how I'm going to find so-and-so, but I know so-and-so always does this. Or so-and-so is always 15 minutes late, or always 15 minutes. You got to know people in just a different way because you had to wait so much. You're always just waiting for people back in the day. Mm-hmm. But like it forced you to like recognize like characteristics of their personality. And you just got to know people in a different way. That's how you found them, because you knew like subtle things about them that maybe you didn't even realize that you knew.
We paid attention to each other.
Yes. Yep.
We paid attention to each other instead of hostile technology, where we basically unleashed the crack dealer on everybody, including ourselves, especially ourselves.
I'm saying I'm unfortunately.
Yeah. No. I could tell some stories about addiction and how the internet has enabled it, or at least contributed to it. But I do think. And this is where I can sound like a grumpy old man like Aaron Rodgers, but I do kind of feel sorry for kids, that aren't. I feel like the natural things we did in human culture installed in us our humanity. And now all that stuff has been dismantled, and it takes effort and values and intention to become a human being. And I almost feel like schools now, Pat, should be basically and the nice thing is the Waldorf school where Noah is focused on how do you become a human being, or like you're a soul in a body here on earth. What do you do with that? And I feel like it's I just feel for kids now, and I hope there's something about their highly technologically advanced, because I mean kids now at least can learn like how to hack their bodies, they can learn how to hack their brains. I mean, there were not all these buff dudes when we were kids.
No,
there were not
no.
people whose bodies look like, speaking of Schwarzenegger, like that you could just and there's any number of things.
Say even the buff guys like looked so ridiculous because there was only blunt force, crude ways to do it. Like there was the Mark McGuire body. There
Right.
wasn't now like the perfectly in tuned, like now they know how to calibrate it better. Basically, I guess what I'm trying to
Optimized,
say.
even
Yes.
like nutritionally, like the way you cool down and all that stuff. It's I mean, but that's not I dwell in my head, not in my body. But we're dwelling here on the couch for 4 minutes. I wanted to ask you this now that I got off track for the Albany show, because stuff happened. It's fun to reminisce, but the season is going to be over. We give ourselves over to football. We all do in the audience. I'm sure you do too. And then we have to we adjust. What are you most looking forward to after the season?
What am I most looking forward to? Just a new routine. So like I actually am the kind of person I do really well with routine. But the season, you've got to have your routine. Like it's got to be 10 out of 10. Like you can't have any deviations, any variations. Like you said, I'm sure even for like many people in the audience who do not work in the football industry, like the football season routine can begin to feel like stifling because like, man, like I've quote unquote got to watch a game 3 different nights. That's 3 out of 7 nights where my night is planned for me. And I don't mind the routine for most of the year because it helps me do my job, helps me keep me on schedule. But it's so finally, speaking of calibrated, like any deviation, like, well, I'm screwed now. Mm-hmm. And like for a while, the human body is very good at coping. The human mind is very good at coping. But I'm at the point of the season where like, man, like I need some slack in the line and some slack in the routine. So that's the one thing I'm looking forward to.
Yeah.
Is getting it to remake my routine in January.
Yeah. On Friday's the one day, and Saturday is like family day. But Friday is the day where I have like some mental bandwidth that doesn't have to be totally taken up with football and producing football content, and my brain becomes like a dog in a dog park, Pat. I mean, it's just like, oh, we can run around here and chase this squirrel up a tree and actually do it, and know that you're not like, oh, if I do this for another 2 minutes, I'm going to be late with this article, and I'm late with that article, I'm not going to be on time for the show. So it is nice to have a different routine. I really hope that of the folks out there that are listening to us and joining us, part of our tribes, that that their routines are something that they get something out of whenever they do get a chance to have a change or be intentional about it. So give me one quick thing before we go that is important to you. You don't have time for it in their football season, but you're going to make time for it when football's over.
Well, I do make time for it during the football season, but just I need not nearly enough is the classic though. And just is it reading the old books, reading the old books. And I try to read 10 pages a day during the football season, which is way, way more than some people read and way, way less than like most serious readers read per day. And so like, it's always the first thing to like, so when there is a deviation, what's always the first thing to go? It's always the stuff you actually want to do. It's the first thing to go. Like, oh man, I'm reading a book on Casey Stengel right now.
Ooh, that's awesome.
It is great. And I'm like, man, I would love to read 25 pages in the book today. And then, of course, something happens and I read 7.
Yeah, and you mean like a physical book where you actually physically turn the pages? That's
I can't do the Kindle or whatever.
That's important. That's important. And when you say that, I'll leave everyone with this note because I was looking at some stuff about the Gnostics, mystical folks. Believing there's something. Again, we have a part of our soul, like part of the super soul, and we have to free it so it can go back to the super soul. Like that's kind of the point of life. And they thought the most special gift that we got, Pat, was our imagination. That was the most celestial, divine. That's like the divinity we have in us is our imagination. And when you read, you have to use your imagination. I mean, it's like going to the gym for your imagination. So everybody read more. Everybody be more delve into something. We're listening to the Velocity of Z about Percy Fawcett. I can't go over an hour. You got five words. Go ahead, Pat.
Just reading makes everything easier. It seems so hard. It actually just makes everything easier. You learn so much. You improve so many skills.
That's why we shouldn't let AI do our thinking for us. Let me and Pat do it for you folks because you're so classy.